Breaking, in the face of coronavirus, 15 healthcare leaders and I published an open letter in the USA Today with an urgent life-saving message for all Americans, state and local leaders, our healthcare and workforce. Stay home. Not go out and vote. Arizona, and here's Tom Perez.
Oh, my God.
Arizona, Illinois, and Florida are all voting today. Please remember your health comes first.
Oh, you asshole.
If their health came first, Tom, you would postpone this primary today until you got everybody mail-in ballots. Please remember your health comes first. Stay safe and take care of yourself. Thank you to all the voters, poll workers, and staff who are risking their lives and lots of them are going to get sick and die because of this. And a lot of their family are going to catch it because they caught it. And then their family are going to die. Stay safe and say thank you to all the poll workers, voters, staff making democracy work. If you have issues at the polls, call our voter protection hotline. Tom Perez should resign. He should have resigned a long time ago, but
what a joke.
He's literally killing people. And the reason why they want this vote to go on is because if they fear that if it ends, then maybe Bernie Sanders will win in the future because people are going to realize we need Medicare for all because of this crisis and a UBI. Even Republicans know that right now. And so they'd rather their own voters get sick and die and their family if the corporation that owns Tom Perez can keep power. Here's a guy who used to be Bernie Sanders' speechwriter. He says the Democratic Party could have demonstrated leadership in a time of crisis. So far, it has not. We will all pay for it one way or another. It's just criminal. And here's just spoke with Deborah Collins, says Abshir Omar. Just spoke with Deborah Collins at the Thurgood Marshall Library about the horrendous conditions inside. She's been waiting for an hour already and decided to step out to avoid the crowded room. Here's what she says.
Marshall branch for voting. There are senior citizens sitting in there. They've been there 2 to 3 hours waiting. There are too many people smashed together in there. It's too close in there. They're talking about all of this. What's wrong? It's taking too long. And I mean, I've been standing out here an hour myself. Too many people in there. None of the senior citizens are being waited on. They're just sitting there and waiting. And a lot of people are leaving. They're not voting because they're having to wait so long. So they're leaving this poll. What is the matter? Supposed to be like maybe 30-minute wait, 2 to 3 hours wait. Something is wrong. Somebody needs to do something.
This is criminal. I mean, legit, like not hyperbolic. People are going to get sick because of this. This is their government leading that. This is amazing. Here's what Katie Helper has to say. She says, Tom Perez seriously needs to stop doing this and then resign. I'm very critical of the Democrats, but I've never felt this physically sickened by them. Tom Perez, go to the polls and volunteer. Yeah, why don't you go work why don't you go to Thurgood Marshall? The coronavirus chaos in 3 states resulted in closed polling sites, lack of cleaning supplies, and confused officials struggling to hold an election during a public health crisis. Joe Biden and Tom Perez encouraged people to vote today despite the high risks. I don't think Bernie Sanders told anybody to stay home either. And the reason I heard from my contacts inside the campaign was the reason why Bernie didn't call for a canceling of this or a delay of the vote today was because he was afraid that he would be seen as opportunistic. So he decided to do the wrong thing because of optics. That's where the Sanders campaign is today. They decided to let this go forward. People Bernie's age are going to die because of this. They let this go forward. It's amazing. And even Bernie won't stand up. Wow. Tom Perez, this is Glenn Greenwald. Tom Perez knowingly risked the lives of large numbers of people, including many in the highest risk group, to advance his trivial, stunted political goal of strengthening Joe Biden. Hard to see how this doesn't result in infections. It's sociopathic, and it's morally grotesque.
Yes.
Sociopathic. Tom Perez is a sociopath. Anybody telling people to go vote today is a sociopath. And shame on Bernie Sanders' campaign for not showing leadership right now. That's why you're losing to Joe Biden, because you don't show leadership. Bending the knee to Tom Perez and the DNC constantly is the opposite of leadership, and it's the opposite of what the country needs right now. And now you know why you're losing. Some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make, says Joe Biden. So here is that letter that here's an open letter to extend mail-in voting and reschedule March primaries amid pandemic. This is at change.org. This has been going around. There's a bunch of doctors wrote this. They say this is to DNC Chair Tom Perez and members of the Democratic National Committee and to the Secretaries of State of Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Ohio, and Georgia. The next round of Democratic presidential primaries, all 5 states have declared states of emergency or have patients in quarantine in response to the COVID-19 novel. Hundreds are sick and multiple people have died. It has resulted in numerous cancellations and postponements, including presidential campaign events in Cleveland and Tampa. In swing states of Ohio, the state's Department of Health Director Amy Acton said there is evidence 1% of Ohioans may be carrying the coronavirus already. That means 117,000 people may already have the COVID virus in Ohio alone. Wow. State officials in Arizona, Illinois, Ohio, and Georgia, with the support of Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders' presidential campaigns, should extend mail-in voting and reschedule the primaries for May when states such as Indiana, Oregon, and Kentucky have their primaries. Until that date, mail-in voting should be implemented throughout under the guidance of health and election authorities. We have seen long lines of voters in states like Texas and Michigan. The amount of time standing in line with hundreds of even thousands of other voters substantially increases the likelihood that someone will get sick. By postponing primaries, state governments will be able to keep resources focused, and they will not need to worry about the distraction of running primaries while responding to this pandemic. This will also give time for the states to implement alternative voting mechanisms, such as vote by mail at a sufficient scale if the pandemic continues to be an emergency for these states. Furthermore, polling place workers who are generally retired volunteers over 65 years old should not be exposed to the risk of contacting the coronavirus while managing precinct locations. We should note that we do not believe that public health crisis or a state of emergency should ever be used as an excuse to cancel elections. The Democratic primary season concludes in early June. The party has full flexibility to schedule state-level races at any point before then. In addition to our primary concern about public health, we believe this would be beneficial to the democratic process. As people are understandably avoiding public places and crowds, we expect turnout to be depressed. Extending mail-in voting and rescheduling the primaries would ensure that more people are allowed to exercise their right to vote without fear. It would also be particularly good for down-ballot races and the Democratic Party primary candidates in city, county, and state races that will likely benefit from a higher turnout. For the health of our fellow citizens and our democracy, please act now to extend mail-in balloting and postpone the upcoming March primaries until May. Signed, a shit ton of doctors. So this is that thing that everybody said Trump was horrible because he doesn't listen to science and he just listens to himself and all he cares about is himself. This is Tom Perez and Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders doing the exact same fucking thing. And Bernie Sanders is willing to risk the life and the health of his own voters, just like Joe Biden and Tom Perez is. Wow. That's the opposite of leadership. Kyle Kalinske says, nightmare scenario. Just learned that multiple family members of mine in New York City are showing symptoms. No, New York are showing symptoms. Everything should be fucking shut down last week. Yeah, it should be shut down last week. And Biden and Tom Perez and Bernie Sanders are still telling people to fucking vote. Could you go to Bernie Sanders' Twitter page?
Yes.
Make sure he hasn't come out.
You got it.
Make sure he hasn't told people that or isn't asking to, because that's what he should be doing. That's what they all should be doing. The only reason that Tom Perez, well, here, you want to know what they're doing? States delaying primaries past June 9th may face delegate penalties. So they're threatening states if they delay their primaries. The DNC is. They sent this warning out last Wednesday. Here it is. A new memo from the Democratic National Committee panel that handles delegate selection for the presidential nomination warns that states that hastily change the first determining step of their own process, meaning the vote, the primary vote, that hastily change the primary vote of their own process could be subject to penalties, including a 50% reduction in delegates if they hold primaries after June cutoff date. This is the kind of shit that you would hear from, like you would expect from Dick Cheney. This is the kind of anti-science, harmful shit that you would expect from fucking Dick Cheney. This is the Democrats doing this. The new DNC memo obtained by The Guardian was sent to members of the Rules and Bylaws Committee on Wednesday night. Last Wednesday, almost a week ago. 3 states will hold primaries on Tuesday. A 4th, Ohio, postponed its vote on Monday. Why? The governor said shut it down. It's a health risk. A judge overruled the governor. And then the health department said, no, fuck you, judge. I'm the health guy. We're shutting it down. So Ohio shut down their voting because they're responsible. And they're taking care of their people instead of exposing them to a deadly virus that was bound to kill lots of them.
I want to read you Bernie Sanders' pinned tweet today, 6 hours ago. If you have any questions about what is happening in your state, you can email us at info@berniesanders.com. And then it says, going to the polls amid the coronavirus outbreak is a personal decision, and we respect whichever choice voters make. If you have questions
that's a
about
cowardly, stupid, that is a cowardly, stupid stance by Bernie Sanders and his campaign. It's awful. It's the opposite of leadership. And now you know why you're fucking losing. That's the opposite of leadership. That's Bernie Sanders bending his knee to the Democratic Party again. Whatever the Tom Perez tells Bernie Sanders to do, he fucking does. Shame on Bernie Sanders for this. It's the opposite of leadership. This is horrible. Like Kyle Kalinske said, the country should have been shut down last fucking week. And Bernie's telling people to go fucking vote. A fourth Ohio postponed its vote on Monday. So everyone's lying to people about this. Donald Trump is lying to people. Joe Biden's lying to people. Bernie Sanders is lying to people. Who the fuck isn't lying to people? Tom Perez is lying to people. It's not okay. The states of Louisiana, Kentucky, Georgia, and Maryland have all postponed their votes. But we got to make sure Illinois and Florida vote. Why? Because we know they're going to go for Joe Biden. So some people have to die. So what? And there are some people who are going to treat me saying this worse than them actually doing this to kill people. Think about that. There are some people who are going to say what I'm saying right now is worse than Joe Biden, Tom Perez, and Bernie Sanders telling people to go get sick and die for their own self-interest. This is gutless. It's It's despicable, it's immoral, and it's sociopathic. And they're all playing the game. Several states have taken steps to change the date of their first determining step, the vote. God damn it, this fucking language. It continued, the delegate selection rules provide that each state's first determining step, that each state's vote must take place by June 9th. If a state violates the rule on timing or any other rule, they could be subject to penalties as prescribed by Rule 21, including at least a 50% reduction in delegates. A 50% reduction in delegates, which will need to be reviewed by the RBC. The deadline to elect convention participants is the 20th of June. So state parties should have plenty of time to elect their delegates, alternates, and standing committee members. When Louisiana moved its primary, the DNC issued a similar warning. We will continue to work with every state party as they adjust their delegate selection plans around coronavirus, the DNC said then, adding a similar warning about their June 9th deadline.
Oh, well, I'm really glad we're going to pay attention to the rules. I'm so relieved that all these rules are being obeyed so they can force a candidate on us anyways.
This is also so Tom Perez's donors and Barack Obama's donors, the people who made Barack Obama rich. Barack Obama, who left government, now has worth about $80 million. Those are the people telling Tom Perez to keep doing this. And then Tom Perez tells Bernie, you better not fucking say anything. And then Bernie doesn't. Ohio Democratic Party sues over the delay of the primary election. So the health official, so the governor shuts down the election. They get a judge to overturn it. The health official has to step in. The goddamn Democratic Party fucking sued to keep the vote going. These people are psychopaths. Yeah, thank you, Ruby. Ruby texted me. This is bullshit. That's a bullshit fucking tweet, Bernie. So here's Josh Fox, Mr. Anti-Frack. Mr. Vote Blue no matter who. Look what he says about the Democratic Party. He says, so let me get this straight. San Francisco under 24-hour lockdown. New Orleans says no gathering larger than 10 people. The CDC says no gatherings larger than 50. New York City is completely shut down, and yet the DNC is going to have a primary where thousands of people will be in line? Yes, Josh, I don't know if you know, but the party you've pledged your loyalty to are fucking sociopaths who would rather see their own voters die than let a progressive fucking win the... You don't get that about your own fucking... This party you've pledged your loyalty to? For a seat at the table? You're with a bunch of fucking sociopaths. Bunch of goddamn sociopaths. That's the group of people you want to get in with. He goes, the DNC and these states involved must immediately create a viable online or mail-in option so folks don't get exposed and pass on this deadly coronavirus. Yeah, FYI, they're not doing it. I demand. And then but you already pledged your vote to them, right? But now I demand. I demand it. Everybody, the next live Jimmy Dore show is May 1st in Minneapolis, and then we're going to Chicago. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all the tickets to all our live shows, and become a premium member at jimmydorcomedy.com/join. We give you hours of bonus material every week. Thanks for your support.